In San Francisco, she tweeted, "Congratulations to President-elect Joe Biden. I'm so proud of my friend and mentor Kamala Harris, that she'll be the next vice president of the United States," of course, making history in the process. And Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf shared this statement. Mayor Schaaf said, "Today, America said yes. Yes to decency and compassion. Yes to new leadership that elevates our values of diversity and inclusion. Yes to a Black Asian woman from Oakland, California. Congratulations, President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris." All right, so I want to bring in Phil Matier here. Phil, what a historic moment. I mean, you've been covering Senator Harris for years here in San Francisco. What is it like to see her now on the largest stage that you can get in this country?
Well, it is going to be a very interesting time going forward. First of all, let's get clear just a little bit. We have a declared winner. That means that various news organizations and people looking at Joe Biden and Donald Trump's race have decided that Pennsylvania goes, so goes the nation, and have delivered him enough electoral votes to win him the presidency. But the president still has not conceded, as far as I know, and as far as we know, and he may be challenging. So this is going to be another page in an ongoing story. While in Democratic-heavy California, yes, for all intent and purposes, Joe Biden is the next president of the United States. Kamala Harris is the first African-American, first South Asian to take the vice presidency job. In the rest of the country, they're going to be going, wait a minute, maybe not so fast. What about those ballots that were counted or weren't counted? So this is going to be an ongoing story. But for right now, the celebration is on in California, and this is also going to have a domino effect, because if Kamala Harris becomes the next vice president, then someone's going to need to replace her. So California is going to be getting a new senator. It's also going to be an interesting time for America as we see the makeup of the U.S. Senate, the House of Representatives, and we'll be talking about that more later in the show, and about what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are walking into when they take office. Liz?
So much to discuss, Phil. I know we're going to break down all of the jockeying that's already going on, been going on for months, on who's going to replace Senator Harris now. Actually, Newsom knows for sure he is going to have to nominate somebody or select somebody. I want to bring in Harini Krishnan. We've had Harini on now a handful of times since Senator Harris was selected as the vice presidential nominee, and Harini is the co-chair of California's South Asians for Biden. And Harini, what a moment for you.
So I've been crying all morning. I think it's relief, but it's so much hope for our country. It's history in the making. We have a woman in the White House. We have broken that highest glass ceiling. We have a woman who has broken that glass ceiling. And I'm thinking of Hillary Clinton today, because I remember for so many of us, we woke up on November 4th, 2016, so dejected, so despondent, and she propelled us into action. So I first of all want to recognize Hillary Clinton for paving the way for so many women. But I will say that this is a moment for so many of us who work so hard to see this. There's so many of us who supported her from January 2019, and we wanted and we believed in Kamala. And then I will say this, to see Joe Biden, somebody who has compassion and integrity at his core, as our next president, and to see Kamala Devi Harris, the first woman, the first Black woman, the first South Asian woman of Indian heritage to become our vice president. This is, I can't tell you.
I know, Harini.
I want to cry and laugh at the same time.
Yeah, I know, Harini, and I just want to tell our viewers, too, that you're watching live picture of Sky 7 looking over the Castro right now as people are gathering and celebrating this historic win. Harini, you had Dorito. What did you have this morning to celebrate?
Yes, I have to show you this. So I have, in honor of Joe Biden, who loves ice cream, I have ice cream in a bowl. And then I have Doritos, which is Kamala's favorite snack. So I'm having ice cream with Doritos to celebrate Kamala. who is with me, and I have a special surprise. I have a cowbell.
What is that?
So this is to make some noise. I know we're in the middle of a pandemic, and if we wear it, I would be literally going out and screaming. So this is the best I could do. I'm celebrating with ice cream and Doritos, and I'm celebrating history in the making. I am so looking forward to our country healing and coming together. I am just so looking forward to just moving forward.
Well, Harini, I know
as a
you
country.
have worked so hard to get to this moment. Your campaigning has paid off. Enjoy. Thank you for sharing this journey with us, Harini. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Liz. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Harini. All right, Phil, we saw the crowds there. We saw what this means. Phil, you just can't ignore the historic nature of this win.
Well, we have the historic nature of this win, and there's without a doubt, especially here in California. We've seen Kamala Harris rise from district attorney in San Francisco, ask her prosecutor in Alameda. I followed it from there over to San Francisco, saw her work her way up Attorney General's office, the Senate, and now into the vice presidency. This is also a historic test, or one of the many historic tests we have for our election system in the United States. This is a very close election. Like you said, for the past 5 days, we have been voting state by state, count by count. And that test is going to continue. There is going to be already questions raised, but it appears at this point that the president's challenges while there may be some flaws in the vote, which is natural when you have a national vote and whenever it's close, that they do not appear to be enough to change the outcome. For example, the ballots that are in question in Pennsylvania that came in after the election day have been set aside, and even without them, Joe Biden has advanced over the president and appears to be taking Pennsylvania. So what we have here is an historically voter turnout on all sides, and I think that was a surprise to many people. It wasn't a surprise to see Democratic support for Joe Biden so great. What took everybody off balance was the support for Donald Trump. He actually got more votes this time than he did 4 years ago, and that created close races in a number of states where we haven't seen before, and it underscores that part of the history of this race is that going forward, we are still in a very divided America, not necessarily regionally, but also within states and within communities themselves, by age, by gender, all the way across. This is, nobody's walking in with a mandate, although, as they say in politics, if you win by one vote, that's your mandate.
Absolutely. As we talk about trying to sort of bridge this country together, because that is going to be the challenge, as you mentioned, for President-elect Biden, I want to bring in Congressman Mark DeSaulnier. He's joining us now from the East Bay. Congressman, thank you for joining us. Phil and I are here. I'll start by just asking, you must be feeling pretty good this morning.
No, I feel great. As Phil said, for a lot of us, it was not what we thought or anticipated. But the end result is we're going to have a new president in a few months, and I think that's in everyone's best interest.
Congressman, the key word there, I heard it in there, were in a few months. This doesn't happen overnight. Joe Biden does not go into the White House tomorrow or next week, but in a critical 3 months for this nation, as we are continuing to try to come to terms with the COVID epidemic and the economy. So what are we facing? You're sitting there in Congress. You have an insider's view. What is the nation facing in these 3 critical months between this election and the inauguration?
Well, Phil, yeah, this is the way it's set up. We went through a transition when Abraham Lincoln became the president-elect. Of course, we don't wish for the consequences of that, but it is what it is. And what my hope is that people around the current president and the current president, while he pursues these other avenues that I think are continue to be divisive, that at least he focuses on what the law is, which is there's a transition. And one would hope that he would be graceful and put the interests of the country ahead of his own, even while he pursues these other options for himself.
You know, Congressman, what's interesting is that it's rather unusual that the president has lost this election at the same time that Republicans did very well when it comes to gaining seats in the House, potentially maintaining control of the Senate. What do you think that says? Is this a referendum? Does it mean it's a referendum on the president?
No, I think it's a referendum on this country that we all have to be aware of, is that this country is very deeply divided. That for us in places like the Bay Area and in these urban areas, particularly the Bay Area, that the transformational issues in our economy around technology in particular have left people behind. And those people we need to reach out to. We need to figure out how they come along. We went through this again during the Industrial Revolution. We left people behind, and it was hard. So people went, electeds and presidents went to them and talked to them, and we passed policy that helped them. So we're going to do that, and we hope to do it in a bipartisan fashion, which to my mind would help the country and the Republican Party. But we're very divided.
Congressman, do you think that this election hinged on policies or personalities? Was America looking for a change in its policies, or was it looking for a change in its president? They wanted somebody that wasn't as bombastic as Trump, and Joe Biden appeared to be the reasonable alternative. Because during the primaries, he was very much in the middle of the road. He was probably the most conservative of the lot. Is America looking for just a calmer period?
Yes. I think a lot of us, and there's the research to neuroscience for all of us, is that there's a point where enough is enough. And we just want to go about our lives. We want people who we elect in a representative form of government to do their job and make our lives as best as they can. But this constant attention and divisiveness, and this is the first president, I think, in my lifetime at least, that deliberately didn't try to divide the country rather than unite it. So I'm very hopeful that Joe Biden has the personality, the skill set, the talents to bring the country back together. But that's going to take a lot of work.
Yeah, absolutely will. All right, Congressman, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Oh, I have a final question. Wait a minute, hold it. This is digital. We get to go a little longer. Were you surprised at how close it was?
Don't let it push you around. Yes, I was. Although I, like all of us, I think we've got to also look at polling and how we handicap these races, because it wasn't accurate. So I was surprised.
Well, in that note, then I'll go off, Phil. I mean, if you are surprised that it was so close, then clearly that maybe means that Democrats need to do a better job with their messaging or in reaching out to certain folks. I mean, do you agree with that? And what can Democrats do to make sure it's not such razor-thin margins next time around?
Yes, I absolutely think so. And I think a real problem in the Democratic Party, and Phil and I have talked about this, there's a gift in human nature. We don't know why certain people connect with people. Why did Franklin Roosevelt? Why did Teddy Roosevelt? And I have a tendency to think, and I know that Phil and I agree with this, it's not because we're mean-spirited, but oftentimes we come across as patronizing, the urban elite problem. So we've got to work on that. I mean, people can tell when they're real or not, intuitively and instinctively, and we've got to get better at that. And I think Joe Biden, that's one of his strengths, is that, came from Scranton, and he's kept Pennsylvania, and he's kept his ties to that. So I'm encouraged by that. But we've got to get better, and we've got to stop constantly listening to a lot of consultants who don't necessarily tell us what we need to hear.
Well, Congressman, thank you on that note. Phil, can I officially say goodbye?
I think you're clear to go.
You're clear to go. Thank you, Congressman. We appreciate it. Have a good one. All right. What Brad was telling us, what are we going to look at? We're looking at pictures. Sky 7 over Dolores Park right now is what we want to show you. This is reaction. You can see there people likely honking, cheering outside their cars. What is that? Oh, that's a car with President-elect Biden's face on the top there. That's a perfect shot from our helicopter from Sky 7. People are out here cheering and celebrating. I know for a lot of people, this was 4 years in the making, right? Nobody expected what happened 4 years ago. Maybe people got complacent after 8 years of Obama. And a lot of these folks are here, people dancing, cheering on the ground. This is a day of celebration for so many folks here in San Francisco who have been working hard to make this day happen. And it was a tight race, Phil, more than any of us, like the congressman said, even expected. If we can, I think we're going to bring in our next guest, which is Kristen Urquiza, a San Francisco woman that y'all probably remember from the DNC. She went viral at the DNC for the remarks that she gave as she sort of blamed the president, or she did blame the president for her father's death to COVID-19. He was a supporter of the president's from Arizona. He didn't follow all the guidelines, and he ended up getting COVID and passing away. And Kristen, I'm so sorry about your father. On this note, it's great to see you again, and I'm sure you're in much better spirits today.
Good to see you again, too. And yes, me and tens of thousands of other families are feeling a breath of fresh air right now.
What have you been doing? Are you in Arizona right now? I think you went and had been campaigning there. What has that been like? We still haven't even called Arizona. ABC News hasn't.
Yeah, I'm currently in my mom and dad's backyard. I've been here for a little over 3 weeks, helping to get out the vote, in particular in Latino communities. And it has been a long, it's been a long 4 years, but it's been a long few weeks, just really focusing on getting every vote into the ballot and then every vote counted.
What do you think? Were you surprised that Arizona turned? This is historic for Arizona. We did see, of course, Cindy McCain probably made a huge difference with her endorsement. But what do you think? Why was it this time that we're seeing such a close race here in Arizona?
Thanks for asking. I think that the McCain endorsement helped a little bit, but really the full credit needs to be given to groups like Mi Familia Vota and Lucha, which are Latino-led groups that for over the course of the last decade have been registering voters and educating Latino voters and working to get them to the polls. It's over 1 million people they registered, and we saw over 72% of Latinos who turned out to vote in Arizona voting for Joe Biden.
Did you expect it to be this close nationwide?
For many of us on Tuesday night, there was a big breath that we took in. We weren't expecting. We wanted the moral victory on top of the political victory. We wanted that referendum from the full American public. But as I've been looking at the numbers more closely, what I am seeing is that there was a referendum, but that referendum was led by Black folks, Latino folks, Indigenous folks. Their numbers were record-breaking, showing up and voting for Joe Biden. And I think there's a lot for us to learn from that.
What do you think the Democratic Party could do better, though, moving forward? Are there any lessons learned so far that you've seen just in the results from the past few days?
Yeah, absolutely. The thing that I've been thinking a lot about is just how the Latino community, we're not a monolith. Immigration isn't actually the top issue for us. Economic issues, if you think about opportunity, it is an economic issue, as well as COVID were the top issues for Latino communities. And I think that the Democratic Party needs to invest in Latino voters like we are white suburban housewives. And you will see the type of results in Latinos going forward.
Final question for you. You are, from Arizona, but you live in San Francisco. So you've now, you have this platform now that is sort of grown over the past few months, especially after your appearance at the DNC. So what's next for you?
We're just getting started. I am really excited to make sure that the Biden administration makes good on its COVID promises, but then actually goes further. We need not only the response that's data-driven, we need to think about what does COVID recovery look like so that there is restitution for COVID families, as well as recognition for the hundreds of thousands of people that have been lost. So I am looking forward to making sure that happens.
All right, Kristen, was something you wanted to add, Phil? No, we're good. Kristen Urquiza, thank you so much. It's great to see you again, and enjoy today. I'm sure you will.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, we want to show you guys some videos that we've gotten from viewers who have been sending them in to us. If you see anything in your neighborhood, send them to us. We want to see the sort of spontaneous celebrations that are popping up around the Bay Area. I want to show you here. Take a listen. That is the sound there of a spontaneous celebration in San Francisco this morning. People banging their pots and their pans as soon as they heard Biden as the projected winner of the election.
Here we are in Twin Peaks, and Joe Biden just won the election.
And another sound from the top of San Francisco there. People up there said they could hear screams of joy all over the city. And this is one San Francisco resident there who actually had a dance party when she heard the news. Probably the best socially distanced thing to do, your own little dance party in your place. But again, we have seen incredible celebrations. Phil, what about you? Did you hear anything in your neighborhood this morning?
Well, yeah, there was a lot of sounds going on all around the Bay Area. Lake Merritt, for example, we showed some videos there. You know, it's interesting that right there you said social distancing. The role that the COVID virus played in this election was massive, both in terms of the divisions between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, masked versus unmasked, that ran right through America as a whole. Did President Trump do enough to prevent the virus, contain the virus? Joe Biden says no, that he was responsible for over 200,000 deaths. Of all the things that we talk about in politics leading up to it, it became very much about the virus for very many people. It became about the economy for an equal number on the other side. It also affected the campaign. We never saw a campaign like this. And some say that helped Biden too, because basically it kept him under wraps. And we didn't have your usual get out there, meeting a lot of voters, a lot of rallies, a lot of debates. Everything was pretty contained. And that there wasn't, it just was we could almost call this the basement campaign. That's what Joe Biden ran. And it helped him because he was able, rather than to engage on possibly a Democratic agenda, just say we need to take care of things now and get his persona out there rather than his policies. And that's what I think a lot of voters and polls show voters went for. They went for a calming, steady as we go, let's go forward personality, and he was able to project that through his mask in the limited times that we saw him out with the public.
He was, and I mean, even though it's these razor thin margins, you can look at the map and see very clearly certain areas that went for Donald Trump in 2016 clearly turned. You know, he lost that support, especially in these suburban areas outside of Philadelphia. His message was not resonating. But then, of course, at the same time,
I'm not sure if well, when we talk about message in politics and we talk about it in the media, what we're saying is he didn't resonate. You know, it's possibly people might have agreed with what some of the things he did, but it was him that didn't resonate. He kept getting in his own way. Donald Trump has an incredible way, even today, of taking a bad situation and making it worse. And he seems to thrive on painting himself into a corner. Right now, he's saying we're going to fight this to the very end. Well, he is. He's probably we're going to have court challenges. We're going to see this thing through. We're going to have part of the nation celebrating, other parts of the nation we're going to hear from later as we move outside the Bay Area bubble, probably protesting and demanding recounts and things like that. So, you know, you can hope that the good feelings prevail over the bad. But the COVID definitely played a role in this election.
Phil, I'm told by Brad, our producer, that there is a huge crowd right now. Where is it, Brad? Oh, here, in D.C. Oh, right outside the White House there. Wow, look at this huge crowd. I mean, obviously, I got to point out with COVID, maybe this isn't the best thing to be seeing, but you can just see these huge amount of people showing up right there. I believe that looks like the church that Trump went to that one day where they had to clear the protesters and do that photo op. That's what it appears like to me. All of these people gathering here, cheering and celebrating outside the White House. For them, I guess it's a good day that the president only has a couple more months in the people's house.
Well, I'm not sure. Are they celebrating or are they saying, you know, it's time to go, it's time to go?
That's a good question, I guess. It could be, I mean, I see a Black Lives Matter sign, so we think that these are celebratory cheers or telling him to get out. Yeah, we have some live picture over the Castro as well I want to show you of people locally celebrating as well, people in the streets cheering, lots of excitement. And as we talk about the excitement, there's probably no one more excited right now than our next guest, Carol Porter. I guess we could say she's Senator, I was going to say Senator Harris, but I really should say Vice President-elect Harris. Carol, good to see you. She was your childhood BFF, basically. Is that right?
Well, Kamala and I were childhood friends. I am actually really good friends with her BFF. But I've been crying all morning. So I am just so excited and so happy for America. There are people in Berkeley. I know my sisters have been texting me all morning from West Berkeley, where we all grew up, and people are literally taking it to the streets. They are just dancing in the streets. And definitely because we have, you know, our homegirl, Kamala Harris from West Berkeley, who is now Madam VP-elect. But furthermore, the dark cloud is now leaving us. We have light, we see light, and it's just very exciting.
As little girls together, I know you say you're sort of the other little girl on the bus with her. Could you have ever imagined that she would be the one breaking this glass ceiling?
No. I knew Kamala was destined for greatness because Kamala just had an air about her, a confidence about her. She had the ability to listen to people from a very young age, to pay attention in class. She had a gift of that, to be able to listen and process information and turn it into something positive. But I never would have guessed this would have happened. However, watching all of the hard work that she's done to be where she is, I'm very proud, and I'm not surprised. If I really look back at all of the work she's done, people sometimes look at what people do and thinks things are easy. And as a woman of color, and especially a biracial woman of color, it's 10 times harder. So I'm over the moon. This is just such a great day for America, and it just shows everyone who America is and what we are and what we're about.
Yeah, I mean, what message do you think it sends to little girls that now when they look at the White House, they're going to see a woman, a Black woman, an Asian American woman standing right there next to the president?
This shows little girls that you can dream big, and if you decide you want to do something and you want to spend the time and work hard and do the work that needs to be done to get there, that you have every opportunity to be whoever you want to be who you are, and to live out loud and be proud.
Carol, thank you so much. Carol Porter, enjoy this day. It's a very special one for you, I'm sure.
It is.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Carol.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
Bye.
Here we are looking at another shot of crowds celebrating, and you can see the signs, and some of them say, he's out, which, Liz, that begs the question, how much of this election was for Joe Biden, and how much of it was against Donald Trump? And as our guest just said, it feels like a dark cloud has left over. We see over there another sign, you are fired. It's not go, Joe, go. It is, you know, gone, Trump, gone. And that's an interesting phenomenon. I remember there were feelings like this at the election of Barack Obama, because George W. Bush, who was considered a dark cloud by many Democrats and many people in the country, was leaving the office. And we thought that that was an historic moment. Hopefully, and now we're back at another one, having swung in the other direction. America is an interesting place, but right now it's red, white, and blue in the Castro, as well as all the other colors that make up San Francisco.
You know, and that video we were looking at before was video from Times Square. So we have now seen, here's D.C. So we're seeing San Francisco, Washington, D.C., New York City. Crowds are gathering. I'll tell you, not to, I guess, I'll give my age, whatever. I was in college the first time that President Obama was elected. And I just remember the crowds that gathered in New York City. It was electricity at that historic moment. And it felt like nothing could really top that when you were in terms of politics. And it's interesting to think that, you know, both Joe Biden and President Trump have won more votes than any other candidate in history. I mean, this, regardless of which side you're on, the president did something that got more people involved in politics than we've ever seen in the past. I know people who usually would never maybe even vote or pay attention. We're out phone banking and volunteering and calling people in Texas. And so there is this sort of beautiful takeaway as well on all fronts, sort of watching democracy watching democracy in action and watching people celebrate, you know, our right to vote and our right to have a voice.
Well, Liz, let's look back over the last 4 years. Has there been a single day in the last 4 years when you did not have a conversation with somebody about Donald Trump?
Right.
This President Donald Trump, love him or hate him or however you feel, dominated not only Americans' government and American politics, but of the American and the world psyche like we have not seen before. We've had historical presidents, but rarely, except for in the cases of something like huge like a war or something like that, have we had a president that has been so omnipresent in people's lives. And for a lot of people, it was just really tough. It was a tough thing. And they were looking to get him out. And there was a host, more than 20 Democratic candidates up to try to get Donald Trump out. And the person that was early on counted out in that race as being too old, too middle, too boring, was the guy now that won the race. And that is an interesting little irony as well, that for all of the activists that we talk about and this and that, this was the guy that just basically came in as the office manager and tossed the apprentice.
But, you know, you're so right as we look at this crowd here from Times Square. When I'm talking about those crowds for Obama in 2008, that was people cheering for him. And I know we can't hear this right now, but I would probably bet money that this is chanting against the president. Get him out, you're fired. There's definitely a different tone that we're seeing. But we also, you know, there is the historic nature of it, and that can't be ignored as well when we talk about Senator
And it
Harris.
shouldn't be. It shouldn't be, because this engaged more voters, in part because we have more voters now. The population of the country continues to rise. But it engaged more voters on all sides. So you can't say that America slept through this decision. America was very much engaged in it. And this was very much a question of should we fire Donald Trump or not? Because that's ultimately what you do when you unseat an incumbent, whether it's a mayor, a congressperson, or a senator, is you're saying you're fired. And that's what America did here. The hope is that the new comes in with a calming effect and we go forward in a positive direction. But that's what you saw here, and I think that's what we're hearing as well. We're hearing celebrations, and we're hearing an exorcism of sorts.
Let's listen in really fast. This is in Washington, D.C., if we can hear what they're saying. There's a lot of cheering, a lot of chants. And it is symbolic that we're seeing that church right there outside the White House. Remember, just 6 months ago, he cleared all those protesters so he could go take that photo op with the Bible outside the church. And I've talked to some political analysts, Tim Miller, who runs Republican Voters Against Trump. It's a national organization, but he's based in Oakland. He was saying in leading up to the election, in their efforts and their polling, as they would talk to Republicans that were kind of on the fence about voting for the president, one of the #1 things that he said bothered them the most when they talked to voters was that incident, that moment that the president sort of abused his power to, you know, move aside protesters so he could take that photo op.
And it was incidents like that, repeated countless times, that chipped away at President Donald Trump. And it was the opposite for Joe Biden. He consistently presented a figure of calm, of reassurance, of we can get the job done and we can do it in a dignified manner. He slipped in the first debate. You and I both watched that first debate. He slipped when he said, called the president a clown, told him to shut up. They both got down into a level, and I don't think Biden was comfortable with that, and he came back from that, and he never went there again. Donald Trump thrives in that arena, and it's going to be interesting to see how it goes forward. Joe Biden is bringing, like I said, a calmness to it, a hope to it, but he's got a very tough job ahead of him because this election day is a great feeling, but governance goes on way past this. Governance is like an endless baseball game. There's always another inning. There's always another crisis. There's things to be taken care of. But we have a person that has a long-term history in the Senate, a long-term history with America. And by the way, a guy that knows where the bathroom is in the White House. He did spend 8 years as vice president, so we're not going to have a very big learning curve. I suspect that what we're going to have is let's get down to business right away type mentality. I don't, and part of that is because of the masks you're seeing right in front of you right now, which remains the dominant influence in America right now, and is going to be the biggest issue facing Joe Biden and Kamala Harris right out of the gate.
Absolutely. And I just want to say that, as we talk about Biden's illustrious, long career full of lots of ups and downs, 48 years ago to the day was the day that he was for ABC News first projected his first win as senator. 48 years ago, November 7th, 1972. So I have a feeling November 7th is a very special day for now President-elect Biden. I want to show you guys a tweet from Governor Newsom. He just tweeted here this morning a photo of himself with Senator Harris, who, Phil, you can talk. They have a long history, a friendship. Is it a friendship?
Yeah, friendship and sibling rivalry, both together. Both Gavin Newsom and Kamala Harris came out of San Francisco. They came out of basically sort of the same support group. They were members of the Glitterati here. We have an interesting combination in San Francisco of progressive politics and Pacific Heights and Presidio Heights money, and they were deeply enmeshed in both. Both were seen initially as more on the middle-of-the-road conservative side, at least by San Francisco standards. It's hard to believe that when Gavin Newsom first ran for mayor of San Francisco, he was likened to Arnold Schwarzenegger and George Bush, saying a continuum of conservatism, and we needed to reject that. Kamala Harris, middle of the road, she got off to a rocky start with the police unions and stuff as the district attorney, but she survived that and grew. Both of them very ambitious. Both of them sought higher office while they were still in San Francisco. Gavin Newsom went on to become lieutenant governor, didn't round out his term. He put in Ed Lee. Kamala Harris went on to attorney general, left that open where Gavin Newsom put in George Gascon, who now just was elected district attorney in Los Angeles. So we are seeing two stars on the rise here, Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom and Kamala Harris have often been both thought of as contenders for the White House. And thanks to Joe Biden's pick of Harris after her own campaign for president flamed out, she is now the leading Democratic contender to replace whatever comes down the pike. And Gavin Newsom is governor of California. And what happens after this remains to be seen. But yes, two siblings, sort of from the same political family, never run against each other. And they've always made a point of not running against each other, but they've certainly gotten very far.
Absolutely. And as he said there, California is so proud today. We'll continue talking about this. I do want to touch on who's going to replace Senator Harris in the Senate. But we have another guest joining us right now by phone. This is Melanie Morgan, a former talk show host and a conservative activist. Melanie, this is Liz. Do you hear me?
Yes, I can, Liz.
Hi, Melanie. So your reaction to this news today?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I'm in my car right now heading on 80. And we're going to the state capitol, and I'm surrounded by trucks and other vehicles with Trump flags flying. This is far from over, Liz. This is not something that conservatives and Republicans and Trump supporters are going to let go, because we feel that the media went ahead and called an election that has not yet been settled. And it's very disturbing. It's very upsetting. And you're going to see people, these same Trump supporters who shocked the country, by half of which came out to vote for Donald Trump, are now going to take that energy and they're moving it into activism. This is something that we are doing. We're putting out a clarion call for people to get involved. There are going to be rallies and protests in every state capital across the United States happening today on through until we get a full, fair, and honest accounting of this election.
Melanie, but of course, we haven't seen any evidence of any kind of voter fraud. And even secretaries of states who are Republican or from Republican states have come forward and said that there has been no evidence of this fraud. There will be a recount, for instance, in Georgia, but that might not make a difference. So where's the evidence of this?
I'm going to push back on that media narrative, Liz. I'm really tired of hearing about where is the evidence, where is the evidence. All you have to do is look at Michigan, where Dominion, which is a company that actually is in charge of the software to count votes, ended up giving 6,000 votes to Joe Biden and was forced to return it because of a coding glitch to Donald Trump. That same coding software is used in 47 other counties in Michigan and 30 other states across the United States. There is evidence. They are taking depositions now. They are getting it before a court. And so until that deposition or these allegations are investigated and certified by a court as true or not true, you can't say there's no evidence. All you have to do is go to YouTube or Facebook or any other social media and look at the videos of votes being changed right before our very eyes. We're not going to accept there is no evidence. There's plenty of evidence out there. Whether a court accepts it or not is going to be the issue that they'll have to be litigated through the Trump lawyers.
Melanie Filmatier here. What do you see and what are you planning here and nationwide in the next couple of days? We're going to have demonstrations. What else?
We're going to have demonstrations. We're going to have people who are petitioning. We are getting organized on social media. We realize now that Facebook and Twitter has censored conservatives and Trump supporters. This is something that's unacceptable. I have a Facebook page with 108,000 conservative activists. We are now actively being censored by Facebook. They are deleting, taking down our posts, anything that has to do with stop the steal or rallying. So we're going to find alternative methods of communication. It's kind of like the days of the Pony Express, Phil. I mean, we're looking at ways that it is going to be very old school. But you know what? It is fight or flight for Republicans at this point in time, and we're going to make
how much time do you think you have?
Forward.
How much time do you think you have?
Not a lot. Clearly, not a lot. Probably 32 to 36 days. But you're going to be shocked to see how we respond, and we are going to respond.
All right, Melanie Morgan, we appreciate your reaction, and we will see what happens in the coming days and weeks. Melanie, thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Phil.
Bye. All right, Phil, we're looking at a live picture right now from the White House, but you just heard from Melanie. I mean, the president, his allies, his supporters are not going to go down without a fight.
Well, they shouldn't, possibly. I mean, democracy is a combination of votes. It's a count, and then you question the count if you don't like the count. That's the way it works. It works like that in Democratic primaries. I've seen it work in city council elections. Sometimes it comes down to 1 or 2 votes, and you go through them, you raise questions, because that's all part of the process. That's what makes it work. It's not just, you know, news medias and people projecting winners. We even have an electoral college. We go through an entire process. Some people don't like it. You're not always comfortable with it, but that's the American way.
Oh,
and
champagne. We got to just point this out, Phil. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we just need to point out we have champagne bottles popping.
Yes, we do, and somebody dressed up as Lady Liberty. Now, what we haven't had in the past is the inflammatory tweets and speeches and such coming out of the president saying it's a fraudulent election and I won. The bottom line is that for Donald Trump is that, yes, he won on election night in the returns, and then he lost in the count that came after that. And that's not because somebody snuck in a bunch of ballot boxes. That's because Pennsylvania, for whatever reason, unlike California, chooses to count its vote by mail after the election day rather than before. We count them as they come in, and we have them all laid out. But I've seen it time and time again where somebody has been leading in the early returns or on election night only to have it change course. We see it with initiatives. We see it go back and forth sometimes. You're winning one day, you're losing the next. So, you know, I don't think that given the numbers that I've seen nationwide and how it's stacking up, I don't think they're going to have to put the cork back in that bottle we're seeing being passed around right now.
Yeah, my COVID heart is getting anxious watching them share that bottle. So don't do this at home, folks. But you know,
yes.
It's a day of celebration.
And I believe this is outside. This is in New York City, but yes,
I think it's D.C.
And what we also have is, you know, before, you know, if this had been a shoe on the other foot, we might have been shocked that all these people are gathering together in an unhealthy manner. But today, I guess it's going to be celebratory, and hopefully they keep their masks on.
Yeah.
There and elsewhere as well. There we go. We got a little line dancing going, okay?
This looks like, and I'd have to get our colleague Jabina in, this looks like a dance that Senator Harris does quite a lot. I've seen her do it even the day that she dropped out of the presidential race. Her campaign staff showed a video of her doing this dance. I'm not sure if it's part of her sorority or there's some symbolism to it, but I know she's always kept good, strong spirits and kept her staff up. And people who work for her, I know, very much respect her.
It is interesting. The Kamala Harris, rise has been not a steady one that's it's been an up and down, a very real roller coaster. Joe Biden was the unlikely person to wind up the Democratic standard bearer, but Kamala Harris was early on was thought to be the person that was going to be leading the Democratic ticket and headed for the White House. But her campaign just didn't go over well with a lot of people, including African Americans, and she didn't even make it to Iowa. And now she's back because Joe Biden selected her. It wasn't because people voted her in as the number 2. And that's the nature of American politics as well. And that's why when we say, could you believe this in 4 years, or what can you say in 4 years? And they say 4 years is a long time. What we've seen in this election is that 4 months can be a long time, 4 weeks can be a long time, and the final 4 days of this election could be a long time. If the polls are to even be closely believed, something big changed in those last couple of days. And that is the nature of politics as well, and the nature of history.
It really is. Brad, do we have Debbie Meslow with us at this point? Okay, there she is. I see her. Debbie, hey, it's Liz Kreutz. Good to see you, Debbie Meslow. This is a longtime friend and advisor to Senator Harris, now Vice President-elect Harris, I should say.
Good to see you. Good to see you, Phil.
Debbie, it is interesting. We were just talking about the roller coaster ride of Kamala Harris to where she is right now, but it's also a Joe Biden roller coaster. He was, like I said, early on, he was counted out as not the person. What were the factors that made Joe Biden and Kamala Harris so attractive to these many voters? Was there attractive, and what was the force behind it from the or were they just seen as the alternative to Donald Trump, which is what you are doing when you run for office as well?
Right. I got to say, I keep thinking today, Liz and Phil, this is such a celebration for San Francisco that, Kamala Harris would not be where she is without San Francisco in that first race. Phil, you remember way back to 2003 when she started. And, I have to say, I think the American people, number one, were looking for a ticket that would help unify the country. It's clear we have a lot of work to do on that. Kamala has always been a coalition builder, as we know here in San Francisco. She's always been a practical problem solver. And I think Joe Biden, given his history in the United States Senate, he is someone who can work with Republicans. And, fingers crossed for Georgia. But no matter what, we got to unify the country. And I think that they're going to start, talking about that tonight in their speech as president and vice president-elect. And I think that you've seen that in the last couple of days. They're focused on coronavirus. They're focused on the things that matter to most Americans. And so, I think that appeal has really put them over the top.
It's an interesting phenomenon. You and I have followed Kamala for years, and when she went to the U.S. Senate, there was some back and forth within her. Should I take this job? Should I do this? Because at the time when she entered the Senate, there was a good chance it was going to be President Hillary Clinton, and Kamala Harris was going to be a junior senator from California. But that changed with the election of Donald Trump. Can you tell us a little bit about how you think her performance from that election night when she first walked into a room full of tearful supporters and said, "Stop crying, we are going to resist, this is not over." How has that played out?
Right. Phil, you've covered her since the very beginning. I've been with her since the very beginning. I think back to that night in 2016, and Phil, you know this about her. She's very superstitious, right? So we are in Los Angeles. It was the first time we were not at Delancey Street for an election night. She's been at Delancey Street for all of her major events. And, the race was called by the AP for Kamala at like 8:10 that night. And again, she just didn't believe it. We had to show her multiple sources. And then it was starting to become really evident that Donald Trump was going to win the presidency. And so we walked into her campaign, what was supposed to be a celebration around 9:30. And, I think that she said what people really needed to hear, that, look, we got to double down. We got to fight. This is not a time to throw up our hands. It's a time to roll up our sleeves. And I think from that moment, she stepped into history as the second Black woman ever elected to the United States Senate, and someone who was going to be strong and not back down. And I think that the people in the audience really needed to hear that. I think the American people, through the judiciary hearings and other things that she did, needed, for her to be strong. And I think that's what you've seen in her. I think that she will be a vice president for all the American people. Joe Biden has talked about that a lot. That's going to be front and center for Kamala. But, this is such a history-making day. I just came in from outside. There are people like battering pans, music playing. This is an opportunity for all of us to celebrate today.
And Debbie, I think it's interesting. In 2010, Senator Harris, she lost her race for Attorney General on the night of the election, similar to what happened this year. And then only a few weeks later did she win. It's sort of a parallel situation we're seeing.
Right, that's right. I keep thinking back to that night and thinking back to Kamala's elections. Every step along the way, district attorney, attorney general, I was in the room for many of those conversations. People saying, like, do not run, you cannot win. I remember when she ran for attorney general, people were saying, they are not ready for a woman in California. They're not ready for a Black woman, not ready for someone who's opposed to the death penalty. And, I think that a lot of this comes from her mother, Shamala, right, who was a pioneer in her own right, of Kamala having that self-determination and self-confidence. And there were a lot of points in that attorney general's race that we thought we were going to lose. And on election night, she lost. The Chronicle called it for our opponent, Steve Cooley. That was quickly retracted when it was clear that she still had a fighting chance. And for 2 weeks, it went back and forth. So, definitely still some of the same similarities of what we felt over the past couple days. But I don't think any of us that have been with her ever lost faith,
Debbie,
both in 2010 and in the last couple days.
Debbie, ABC News just called Nevada for Biden, so that's more in the bank. But let's step back a little, because during that time when she ran for Attorney General, and it wasn't decided for 3 weeks, were you contemplating legal challenges? What was your team doing? What was Harris's team doing under those circumstances? How were you ensuring that the votes were going this way and that?
Bill, I got to say, her longtime political consultant, A. Smith, we were ready. We did stay up all night in Delancey Street. We left Delancey about 5 a.m. She had come up. And the next day, Ace and the team, they were prepared. They had people in the county elections office, especially in Los Angeles, where those votes were coming in. And he said to us, look, it's going to be a long haul. Like, we've got to be patient. Those votes are going to keep coming in. And Phil, I think ultimately we won that race, I want to say by 70,000, 75,000 votes. I think it's still one of the closest races in California history. But I have to say, Kamala from the very beginning understood and talked to people throughout California about innovation in law enforcement. She's a great instinct, and you know that about her, Phil. She's a great instinct. And when people told her, like, look, you just can't win this race, she really believed that she had a message, that she would build a coalition. She outworked her opponent, as she always had. And so 3 weeks later, he conceded. And then she became the first woman, first person of color, Attorney General of California.
What a rise. Debbie, before we let you go, the next conversation here in California is going to turn to who replaces her. Do you have any predictions, any thoughts, any advice for the governor?
I can only imagine how the cell phone of the governor is blowing up today. And, we were so proud when Kamala got elected, as the second Black woman to the United States Senate. It's certainly a historic seat. I have to say there's an embarrassment of riches in California. That's why we've had so many incredible people and so many incredible women come out of California. And so I wish the team good luck. I hope they're celebrating great too. And I wish them good luck.
That means that she has more than one friend.
Exactly. That's a good answer. All right, Debbie Meslow, thank you so much. Enjoy today. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Talk to you later. Bye. All right, before Phil and I finish wrapping up and chatting about some of those conversations, the Senate seat, we want to show you some more pictures of the celebrations happening around the country. of a spontaneous celebration in San Francisco, people banging their pots and pans as soon as they heard Biden as the projected winner of the election.
Here we are in Twin Peaks, and Joe Biden just won the election.
And another sound from the top of San Francisco there. People up there said that they could hear screams of joy all over the city. And this is one San Francisco resident who had a dance party when she heard the news. So a lot of celebration here in the Bay Area, a lot of Hopetown pride happening today. We have just seen these incredible celebrations as people learned that Joe Biden will be the next president, along with his running mate, now Vice President-elect Harris, Madam Vice President-elect, I suppose we should say, Phil, a truly historic moment and a big day for California.
That's right. And we're going to be going forward into some very challenging times. And it's going to be interesting. We're going to get a replacement for the senator. But you said it's historic. This is historic in many ways, not just political. This is historic. This is an election that happened in the middle of a pandemic that the world has never seen before. And you know something? We did it. It's still going to be done. We're going to go through the courts, but we did it. We went out and did what Americans have done for centuries. We went out and we voted, and we are going to have the results one way or the other and go on from there.
And if there's anything we learned from this election as these bipartisan poll workers and volunteers continue at this hour counting every single ballot meticulously, is that every single vote matters and every vote counts.
That's right.
Big takeaway.
You can question the bureaucracy, you can take it to court, but those are the wheels that turn that keep this whole machine going. And like I said, challenges we can expect. This is not, the story is not over. They'll be developing breaking news, I can guarantee you, in the coming afternoon. So I hope you all watch ABC7 tonight and continue to tune in, because that's the nature of it.
I'm not letting you go quite yet, Phil. I want to ask you, when did you first start covering Senator Harris? What were sort of your earliest memories of her?
I first started covering Senator Harris when she was an assistant district attorney over in Alameda County, and she was coming over to San Francisco for social and political events. I would have to say that from the first time I saw her pull up in a BMW sports car on Treasure Island, get out and start talking with people, I turned to a mutual friend by the name of Stanley Gotti and said, "Who's that?" And he said, "Kamala Harris, and Phil, keep your eyes on her." And we have.
Wow. We certainly have. Your prediction for who replaces her here in California?
you know, I'm going to give you something. They say that, you know, I'm an insider and sort of an expert and things like that. I am going to make news. I'm going to say two words that you've never heard an insider and an expert say. Beats me.
We appreciate the transparency, Phil. I know it's going to. Governor Newsom has a hard job ahead of him.
There's plenty of candidates. You know, there's a saying in politics. What you do is you try to pick somebody that's been there with you and that's going to be there with you. You know, so you try to pick friends. He has a whole slew of people out there that he could pick from. There's no shortage of qualified candidates in different things. And remember, it can also be a chess game. For example, if he takes Attorney General Javier Becerra, a former congressman, and says, "No, I think it'd be better fit if you went to the Senate," he'll have an opening for the attorney generals that he could put in. So let the chess game begin, but the big play has happened today in Pennsylvania, Nevada, Washington, Georgia, and across the rest of the country as we finalize the count.
Absolutely, Phil. Great way to end it. Thank you for joining us and rushing in here this morning. Thanks to all of you on Facebook and YouTube and our website for watching us. We appreciate it. Our coverage continues right now on ABC7news.com. So stick with us right here because we have a full 25-minute documentary on the life of Kamala Harris by my colleague Julian Glover. It's fantastic. I hope you stick around and watch it. Meantime, Joe Biden is expected to speak to the nation at 5 o'clock. ABC News will bring you that live and keep you up to date on all of today's developments as well on ABC7news.com, our ABC7 News app, our connected TV apps on Apple TV, Android TV, Fire TV, and Roku. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great day.
I wanted someone who was strong and who was ready to be president on day one.
Will you pronounce your name for me, please?
It's Kamala.
Kamala Harris.
Hi, Kamala Harris.
It's really inspiration because knowing that she was born in Oakland.
She's from here. She knows what we go through.
Kamala's come from this neighborhood. She knows the steps
from below to up high.
Do not be constrained by tradition. Do not listen